The Executive Mayor of the City of Johannesburg, Kabelo Gwamanda, together with the members of the Mayoral Committee for Public Safety and other councillors, will today be visiting a Diepkloof hostel in Soweto. This follows several days of violent protests by hostel residents and numerous engagements between the city and residents to address the challenges of electricity, sanitation and water that have been raised by the residents. SABC News reporter Chriselda Lewis is now joining us live from where the meeting will be taking place. Chriselda, good morning and thank you so much for making time for us. So the members of the Mayoral Committee as well as the Mayor of the City of Johannesburg will be engaging these residents. Why have they heeded the call this time around, considering also that these residents have been raising these issues for some time now?
Well, Alton, I think precisely because what we've seen over the past couple of days is, a community that has really been up in arms in terms of protests in this area over what they say is the lack of the city's listening to the demands that they've made regarding the alleged lack of a service delivery in this area. As you correctly pointed out, they've raised issues relating to the lack of ablution facilities, an electricity project that was started in this area and then it basically stopped. And they say there was no communication with them about why, the process to electrify this area had stopped. They're also speaking about a lack of adequate, provision of water. And those are some of the concerns that they've raised that we've seen over the past couple of days. There still is, Aldrin, a police presence in this area following, of course, what we saw were protests that had turned violent, over the past couple of days, in which these residents had said they are not going to stop unless there are members of the mayor's office or the mayor himself and other members of the mayoral committee, who of course will be here today, who will come to try and hear what their concerns are and see how they'll be able to address it. Here towards my left, you would see that there are some members of the community that have already arrived in anticipation and hoping that over the next couple of hours there will be some sort of way forward in terms of addressing what their concerns are. Members of the leadership, we understand, of this community had met this morning, and they did indicate that they're going to robustly engage with the mayor together with other members of the mayoral committee. I know that some of those that are expected here are members of the mayoral committee pertaining to public safety as well as human settlements. Those are some of the key issues, that have been raised. So those stakeholders from the mayor's office together with the mayor himself who will be here today, this community is certainly hoping that those issues will be addressed. What we've heard over the past couple of hours is that there seems to have been a lack of communication on certain aspects, pertaining to why this electricity project had been stopped, when it was stopped, what happened to the money that was allocated, which we understand ran into millions to have this area electrified. There are a number of aspects that the province as well as the city have been raising about why, some blame being put on the contractor, for example, for lack of communication to this community about why the process pertaining to electricity had been stopped in this area. But I guess, certainly on this part, we will have to wait to see if the engagement that will be had here this morning will be enough, to satisfy this community that there will be some kind of tangible way forward.
Yeah. And speak to us about the living conditions of some of the hostel dwellers or residents there at this hostel, considering as well that not too far from the hostel itself, there is those low-cost housing projects that were built around the areas. You spoke there about the electricity and the area not being electrified. Are those units occupied at all?
Well, Alton, I guess, the best way to describe what we've seen here has certainly been appalling. I mean, I can tell you about the very hall here at the Diepkloof hostel that I'm standing in. If you take a look towards that direction, you'll see there's absolutely no windows. The windows are shuttered at this hall where we are, where the mayor will be meeting community members, which really gives you a sense of the fact that, you know, all is not well in this particular community. It's extremely cold in here, and it points to, you know, infrastructure that, you know, has been dilapidated, and some of the housing here as well, Eldrin. Some of them don't have roofs, you know, some of them are near collapse as well. The structures at the hostel in which these residents live in, and, you know, they've been raising these issues for a very long time, and they want to ensure that by the time the mayor is done here, and, you know, with all the instability also, Eldrin, you know, ironically, this is also something that was raised by a community member this morning, saying that with so much instability in the city of Johannesburg with regard to the leadership, they don't want a situation where you have Mayor Kabelo Gwamanda coming here today, and then, you know, you have the kind of instability that we've seen in the city of Johannesburg in terms of leadership, and then next thing there's somebody else who will then come here and say that they've taken over the reins, they'll have to start the process again from scratch, they would need to familiarize themselves with what promises have been made. So there are an array of issues here that talk to what impacts service delivery. But in this particular instance, if we're talking about, you know, the lack of, you know, proper infrastructure and electricity and issues like that, you know, a lot of shifting of the blame has been done here and there. But I guess this community is certainly hoping that once they're done here, there would be some kind of way forward.